Well, good afternoon and welcome to a brand new workshop that we've put together called Essential Skills for Higher Degree Researchers. As I'm still admitting people from the waiting room, thank you so much for your time today. My name is Karen Carvu. I'm the HDR Career Educator here in GRED, and I'm also joined by my colleague, Murray Lane. Give them away, Murray.
Hi, everyone.
It's great to have you all here. And we thought this was a really useful workshop for you because we wanted to make it really explicit what the essential skills for HDR researchers are, how you develop them, what you can do, how you prioritize them, and what you do with them after that. So thank you for joining me for the next 90 minutes. There's a lot to get through. So we'll kick off with, of course, our acknowledgement of traditional owners. QUT would like to acknowledge the Turrbal and Yagara people, the First Nations owners of the land in which QUT now stands. We pay respects to their elders, laws, customs, and creation spirits, and we recognise that these lands have always been places of teaching, learning, and research. So, in case you don't know, for those of you who are new to the term, we call ourselves GRED. What does GRED actually stand for? Well, we're the Graduate Research, Education and Development team. There's about a dozen of us, and we're all really passionate about seeing you succeed in advancing your research from conceptualization to communication, to lead your career, that's usually where I come in, to launch your career, to drive your projects and direct your life, small little portfolio that one, and to engage with industry, to improve your teamwork and your industry connections, to bringing your research and your research skills, which is what today is all about, to the world. So I've got a few goals that we've marked out for today. So this is what I'm hoping to get through. It's a big workshop. We're going to be providing an overview of the 12 key skills that are required for researchers, to explain the steps to identify what to prioritize of those 12 skills, to use a model to implement timelines of when to prioritize what, and then to create an HDR action plan. So we've got big goals for you today. Can I just double check with a raise of hands, has everyone done the skills audit? Oh dear, it's not the skills audit, we don't call it that anymore.
The HDR skills assessment tool.
There we go, the HDR skills assessment tool. Learn the language, Karen. Has everybody completed that recently? You should have received an email on Friday suggesting that you revisit that. If you haven't, it's available on the website. Murray, would you be able to just put in the chat where the link is to that, if that's okay? Sorry. This is the tool that we are basing today's workshop on. So if you've done it before and haven't done it recently, it would be great for you to have another look just to see how you're tracking. And for those of you for whom this is new, this is a really fundamentally useful tool for you to explore what your skills actually are. So this is our plan for today. What might your plan be? So what I'd like you to do is write in the chat, are you here for A, identifying your critical skills, B, for planning your skill development, C, prioritizing, so timing what to do and when, or D, showcasing your skills? Are you A, B, C, or D? Can you write in the chat? All of them, Adriana, don't be sorry about that. All right, we've got lots of C's. And yes, of course, we will send out the slides. Usually that takes a day or so, but hopefully I'll have them ready for you this afternoon. So lots of C's, some all B's and C's, A and B. Excellent. Well, it sounds like, I was about to say, Freya, other than showcasing our skills, we need it all. So I'm so glad that you're all here, because that's exactly what we're going to be doing. It's really good to have you here. So let's get started. So today we are going to be using a Padlet throughout this whole workshop. So what I would suggest is, if you can log into the Padlet, we've tested it, you are allowed to write it. It comes up anonymously. So my profile's on there just because I wrote it, but your feedback will be anonymous, and we'll be building this as one of the resource tools that we'll be sending to you again after the workshop. So this will come in handy. So that's the tool we're going to be using. So all I'd really like to do now is just figure out what stage of candidature you're all at. So what program are you doing, the MPhil or the PhD? And are you at the beginning, in the middle, or towards the end? Just early, middle, late would be really helpful. And what faculty you're from. So that's a lot of questions. Stage of candidature, your faculty, and what program you're doing. Thank you. Early architecture. Welcome, Emma. PhD early. Oh, you're all early so far. This is wonderful. I'm so glad. And Chris is a mid. This is fabulous. We would love for this workshop to be one of the foundational workshops that you come in and invest in early into your candidature. But if you're in the middle of it, or if you're towards the end of it, you are still really welcome, and you'll be able to use all of these tools. You'll just have to use them all in a bit more of a hurry. It's great to have you. Thank you. Middle-ish. I love it, Luke. All right, so we've got pretty much every faculty then represented, which is wonderful. What I'd like for us to do is to get to know each other a little bit. And instead of just saying, using our professional introductions and our professional networking, if I was going to be using my professional networking, I'd say, hi, I'm Karen, I'm the HDR career educator, and I'm researching career identity in HDRs and ECRs. The problem with introductions like that is they kind of just go, oh, okay, what do you do to respond to that? Usually it doesn't create any opportunity to share. So we're going to be using an Indigenous framework that Ernie Grant put together called the Holistic Learning Framework. And this framework is about who are you? So what labels do you apply? Where are you? And then why are you? So to give you an example, using this framework, I would say, hi, I'm Karen. I'm a wife, a mum of a teenager, and a daughter to English, Chinese, and Fijian parents. You're already getting to know me a little bit, aren't you? I've lived and worked in 7 different countries around the world, so I don't have anywhere that I really identify with as home, but right now I'm coming at you from Meanjin, which is Brisbane. I'm interested in encouraging students to prepare as much for their future as they do for their research topic to guarantee their success. So that's what it looks like using Ernie Grant's holistic framework. Would you like to have a go? So who are you? Where are you? And why are you? And I'll just put you into some breakout groups so that you can share. it lets me do it. Break it. Murray, can I get your help, please? Sorry. Can you put everybody in, say, groups of 4?
Sure can.
So what's that, 5 or 6 groups, something like that?
Yeah. Here we go.
Sorry, Murray.
Hey there, Juliana.
More interesting for you and a little bit more fun than just saying, hi, this is what I'm researching. Our research topic is obviously the first thing we think about. It's still important, but sometimes just leading with that doesn't leave us anywhere to go, oh, wow, that's really interesting. Tell me a bit more. And what we learn from using this label is that connections are built on relationships. So I really love that model to start with. So hopefully you got something out of that. Who are you? Where are you? And then why? So today we're going to be talking about the top 12 skills that all researchers need to both be successful inside their research, but also taking that research forward after their study. So these are our 12 skills. We've got advanced down the bottom in orange. These are usually looked after or primarily looked after by our language and learning educators, our academic writing educators. Tasha and Kerry, and they are amazingly helpful. If you haven't met them yet, please do. Yellow is where you'll find me in Lead Your Development in terms of career development, mostly project management and wellbeing. And then the green is Engage with Others, where you'll find our industry team, which are Susan and Simon at the moment. So these are the skills that we're focusing on today. Here's something that I find really encouraging. Did you know that the skills you need to do your PhD are the skills that industry need as well? So obviously the most important skill you need, or the qualification that you need to get a PhD, is your degree. So obviously that's the first one that's up there. But in terms of the rest, your communication skills, your research skills, your digital skills, your cognitive skills, all of these are really, really important to industry and any employer going forward. So everything that you're investing in during your study period is useful outside of that as well. So this is taking from the assessment of teaching and learning, assessment and teaching of 21st century skills. That is a mouthful. And I've given you the link. for that for you to investigate further. But essentially what they're saying is that these 21st century skills, now these are not exclusive to researchers, but have a look. The ways of thinking, your creativity, innovation, your problem solving. If only a research degree would help with this. Yeah, I think they do. Then they talk about the tools you need for working, what your information literacy is, and your communication literacy. Then they talk about the ways of working and your communication skills, the opportunity that you have to develop your academic communication and then translate that for the lay people among us in the professional team, but also out to industry. And then ways of living in the world. These are really important to bear in mind. So you'll see these reflected in the 12 skills that we've put into our skills assessment tool. I got that right this time, Larry. Now, first of all, we'll talk about academic communication. We're not going to spend a huge amount of time on that because everything that Kerry and Tasha do, they've got workshops almost every week for you to help you with this. But I wanted to just illustrate the difference between academic communication and industry communication. So skills that we learn and things we learn how to do inside the tertiary environment and how they might be interpreted outside. So for example, you might say, one example of my communication skills is I wrote and published a Q1 peer-reviewed article. That's amazing. It may not have much, not relevance, but they may just not understand the significance of that outside. So it's about how we translate a skill like this. Is this left-hand side looking pretty familiar? These are the kinds of academic communication that you can illustrate your skills with. So I served on an HDR research committee. I underwent a rigorous review process after editing my final thesis. Well, all of you were early, most of you were early, so you haven't done that yet. Or I presented a paper at a national conference. Hopefully all of you will get the opportunity to do that. Here's some different ways that industry might expect you to talk about your academic communication skills, but in a different way. I collaborated with colleagues to write a report with recommendations. I delivered the final project report. I presented my team's project to the executive board and negotiated finance approval. Are you noticing lots and lots of action verbs rather than wrote or did? I negotiated a promotion for a colleague, even better. I advocated for a review. So this is to illustrate that your communication always has a context. And when you're communicating with people inside that context, you understand each other's language. Outside of that context, they need a bit of interpretation and you may have to retranslate what you've done for people to understand why it's so difficult and why it's incredibly useful. So a second skill, digital literacy and data management. So what does that actually mean? Well, let's unpack that. Digital literacy, data literacy, and technical skills and digital threat awareness. So Forbes have identified these are the 4 digital skills that everyone will need for the future of work. And I've given you the site for that. So on the source for it, so you can have a look. But these are the 4 digital skills that everyone needs moving forward in the world of work. Digital literacy, data literacy, technical skills. Now, what those technical skills are will keep changing. But the idea is that you've got an aptitude to be able to continue to learn new ones and digital threat awareness. So a lot of what we're going to be talking today, this is food for thought. What evidence do you have or could you build for during and beyond your HDR study to evidence that you have these skills. They're going to want to see it on your job applications, your digital profiles, on your LinkedIn profile. Are they there? So inside academia, while you're working on your thesis and your assignments, ethics and integrity are a huge part of what you do and how you do them. And it might feel that it's specific to academia. So what's the point of all of that? Hopefully this is something that is not new to you, but in inside study, it's to support the aim of research, to promote the values that are vital to collaborative work. This is from why ethics in research are crucial, by the way, to ensure public responsibility, build community support, to endorse other moral and social values. But ethics and integrity, it speaks to the law of attraction. Yeah. So that's why I've got a magnet illustrating this point, speaks to the law of attraction in employability, which is you attract people, organizations, teams and projects and roles that match your values and your demonstrated ethics. So being aware of how to articulate those and how to evidence those, again, on your applications, as well as your study as you progress through, is really critical. What we're highlighting here is that very few industries make this explicit, but they are really highly valued. And it is usually only research candidates who have been able to explicitly think that through and lead it to outcome. So it's really important to develop, not just to say, yes, I've passed my ethics committee review, but to say, this is who I am and what I stand for as a researcher as you go forward. All right, this is always a fun one. Critical thinking and creative thinking. So in terms of the new future that we have, which is COVID impacted, so your study has changed, your research has changed, the outcomes post your study, these have all changed. So what is the challenge of Cyber Nation? According to Durant White and their co-authors for the Australian Future Workforce, and this is actually before COVID that they've come out and said this, that job losses may be polarized. So admin and sales, maybe some service roles will disappear, but jobs in the technical professions and personal services remain. But the jobs that remain are characterized by non-routine thinking and high levels of originality and creativity. So what is it that helps to build your creativity? So why aren't we teaching researchers to manage, to harness, and to demonstrate your creative processes? Usually that's just something that you just go, oh, well, that's just what I do. And how I do it, I don't really understand even what the process is for that. So I'd like you to think of a job. Think of a job that you would like to do post your study. We're not going to hold you to it. You're allowed to change your mind. But think of a job that you may need to consider after you've studied. What's an example of how you would need to think critically or creatively inside that role? And I'd like you to write one example of that on the Padlet. So, have we given you the Padlet address? That would be helpful. This is the first time we're going to use our Padlet. Actually, I should have referred you to the Padlet beforehand with your communication showcase as well. You can fill that in later. What I'd like you to do is underneath the critical and creative thinking, just write a really brief example of where you'd need to use your creativity or your critical thinking in a future role. Be brave. Who's going to be the first one to write? Have you all got access to the Padlet? So one role in the future that you would need, oh, thank you. See, it comes up anonymous. All we need is the first one to be brave. Problem solving requires critical and creative thinking, as the solution isn't always obvious. Yes. Maybe a project manager would have to deal with unexpected issues. Yes. Okay, so to work in government, someone said, yeah, I want to work in government. It might be that creativity is really highly prized in that, but most definitely critical thinking will be. What are some of the evidences that you can build as you go through your study that evidences that you excel at this? Ideally, what we're trying to do with this workshop is to say these are the skills that are going to help you succeed in writing your dissertations and completing your MPhil and your PhD. But beyond that, specific examples will be able to testify to your incredible skills later on. Thank you so much for sharing. Complex healthcare decisions most definitely requires both critical and creative thinking. I'm going to let you keep adding to that as you go, but keep the Padlet link open because we're going to refer to that quite a bit. All right, the next skill is discipline-specific skills. So this is the one time that we go off on different tangents, on separate tangents to each other. So all fields of research include specific skills that need to be developed that are unique to your discipline. So things that only apply to you and maybe not to anyone else in this workshop. So now's a quick fire opportunity for you to add to the Padlet to reference yours. Maybe there's a piece of software that you have to be expert in. Maybe there's some formulas that you need to be aware of. Maybe there are some principles that apply. So what are some of those technical skills or disciplinary specific knowledge or information that's unique to you? Thank you for the first poster there that's talked about data analysis. Yes, and that looks quite different regardless of your discipline, doesn't it? Ideally, what this will be is a bit of a worksheet for you to refer to later that you can prompt your learning. So you might be able to reference specific skills or specific examples that someone else may need to reference also, and they didn't know how to express it. So this is going to be an ongoing tool. Coding, yes, coding, modeling, coming up with different methods, absolutely. Visual communication, yes. All of those things that are really disciplinary specific. Keep adding to this Padlet because this will be your ongoing resource. All right, so there's things I can't specify what your discipline specific skills may be, but we all know that they are totally necessary for you to succeed. But that's, I guess, it's a fill in the blanks kind of an opportunity there. Potentially in a similar way, Another set of skills within the ACT, the first section of our skills wheel, is methodologies and practices. So what is a methodology? Would anyone like to turn on their mic and just add a brief answer to that? What is a methodology?
It's a framework, a blueprint, a step by step. For me, it's a checklist. In simple words.
Perfect. Thank you, Adriana. Yes. Why is it important? Within your study, why is this important?
Structure in my case, so I was discussing that with my supervisor that the methodology is the plan, the strategy, how you get it. And also is an early stage that you can discuss if your strategy is the erroneous for your research. Because so many people, including me, are thinking maybe something that is not valid. So what is the point that this is a process for critical thinking and yeah, a little bit.
Thank you. They're beautiful answers. Yes. So without a methodology, we don't know whether we're taking the right approach, whether we're considering the right sets of data, or whether we are using a robust method to construct our data and then our conclusions from them. Because it demonstrates our research skills, our critical thinking, and lots of other skills that we've already discussed, this is the demonstration of why or how we get consistency. And again, throughout your research and beyond, how do I know that I'm going to be effective? How do I know that I'm asking the right questions, looking in the right place, being able to say my preferred methodology impacts my practice? And so this is what you're going to get with me as a researcher. These are the principles that I follow, is something that's really useful to articulate inside, but also outside your role. So that's a pretty quick flick through the first set of skills for the first section of our skills wheel, the ACT. Now we get to the bit that I really love because this is my baby. So here we've got mindset, study, and connections. So I've got a vested interest in this section as the careers educator. But to remind you, the most important project you're ever going to work on is your career. You're going to be working on that project throughout your lifetime. So taking a project management approach to your career planning is kind of useful. So how do you make time to focus on that during your HDR study? Thank you for coming to today's workshop, because often students, HDRs, don't think of this until it's quite late. So how do you make time to work on this with the deadlines flying at you? What I'd like for you to do is on the Padlet, go back to our Padlet. Now, write some of the project management examples that you've gathered across your life so far. Could be personal, could be professional, could be academic. Even though it's anonymous, don't give us any deep, dark secrets. But what are some of your personal, your family projects that you have managed so far, as well as your academic projects? This will form the basis of the examples that you can continually use when you're asked to evidence these skills. So under leading your development, the yellow section, your project management examples. It could be that you've planned a wedding, yes. I was just going to provide that example to get you started, but you beat me to it, yes. Created a national database. This is fantastic. How did you decide on who your supervisor was going to be? Was that a little project in itself? The more specific you can be, managed a busy household. Yes, and they're getting busier, aren't they? Just being able to know where everyone in your family or your flatmates could be at any one time, just knowing where they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to be working on at any given time can be quite a complex project management. Take notice of the projects that you build as you go through your study, because these are the examples that are hard to find at the end when you're articulating your skills. Okay, so I want you to consider something with me. In terms of project management, what is the product or the outcome of your project, which is your HDR study at this point? So I want you to start to consider your current career identity. So who are you at the moment? Most of you are in the early stages. Who are you? Then I'd like you to be brave enough to add this to the career identity section on the Padlet. Now, there's a formula that I'm going to use. So to get you from who you are to who you will become once you've graduated, there's a formula. I use I am a, now fill that in however you want. These are examples. A second-year PhD researcher. I'm a mature age teacher. I'm a robotics engineer. I'm a previous sales executive, a new Australian with a history in accounting. Doesn't matter what it is. So I am a. I also use this model to fill out my about section in my LinkedIn profile. It's useful to use at the start of a resume in terms of your professional summary. I am a, what's your phrase? Then I'm skilled in, then pick 3 skills that you are particularly well-versed in, that people come to you for advice in. I'm working towards, then your future options. And then I thrive when. This is a really helpful framework. It can take some thought. So I'm fine if you need to process this before you add it to the Padlet. The first one is probably the easiest to write in the first instance. So just who I am at the moment. I'm a second-year PhD researcher. I'm a mature age teacher. That one we can come up with as our current identity. But then to list 3 skills that are specific to you, what I'm working towards, and then what environments you thrive in. So in those 4 sentences, I've written your professional summary at the top of your resume. I've written your about section in your LinkedIn profile. And I've also given you an answer to that horrible interview question that we never quite know how to answer, which is tell me a little bit about yourself. That formula works for all of those things. It's a really helpful one. It helps as you're studying to say, this is my purpose right now. So those days when all it feels like is a lot of reading or a lot of working around problems and too much creative or critical thinking, come back to this. This is who I am. This is your grounding. It's a really helpful model to use. And just for a bit of fun, if you got stuck with where I think I might end up after my study, Have a look at this link. There's 100 jobs there that don't yet exist. This has been put together by Professor Ruth Bridgestock. She did her PhD at QUT. She was a course coordinator here. She's moved on to bigger and better things down in Melbourne. But she's given us some language to express roles that don't exist. A virtual clutter organizer. Boy, do I want someone like that in my life. A nutrigatome consultant, a genetics coach, a swarm artist. I'm really curious what a lot of these things are. It's a fun read. So if you are concerned that you can't put a label on what your future looks like yet, she may give you some inspiration there. So it's a bit of bedtime reading for you. Now, this is the fun part. I'm going to give you a little sneak peek into what a one-to-one appointment with me sometimes looks like. So a student's made an appointment with the careers educator. You're able to do that too. I have half-hour opportunities every Thursday afternoon, usually, if you want a direct conversation with me. So somebody's come to see me. They don't know what their work strengths really are. They don't really know what careers are in their current field of study. They can't get past their assessment. They haven't completed an internship, haven't begun to search for work, and they're not aware of who is hiring right now. If that sounds like you, or some of those sound like you, that's awesome. I talk to people like that every day, but I want you to have a quick think. If you had to solve, if you had my job and a student came to you with this set of concerns, if they're in their final semester of their PhD, what advice would you give them? And do they have time to action it? What if they were just starting their final year? And now think, as most of you are early, so if this student was waiting for their external examination, what do you think? The difficulty with some of these dilemmas is the earlier you identify that, yeah, maybe this is something I need to work through, the more time we've got to work on it. So at any stage of your HDR career, you can come and see me and unpack some of these. Every workshop that I deliver works through some of these. But importantly, the earlier you start, the better. Why is career development a useful thing to know up front? Anybody going to be brave? Unmic yourself. Why is it important to know upfront? Well, it's important to invest in, I should say, not know. All right, I'll take pity on you. Essentially, the reason that it's useful, you don't need to know what your career path, singular, will look like after your study. But knowing what your options are means that you can take those opportunities as they're available to you, and you can develop those opportunities while you study. If you leave it till the end, there might be opportunities that you miss, and we don't like missing out, do we? So moving on. So that was the lead section. Oh, I think I've skipped a couple of slides, never mind. Engaging with others. So the relevance while you're studying internally. So we have the same three icons: your mindset, your study plan, and your connections. How does engaging with others help your mindset, your study, and your connections? So who are the others we're even talking about engaging with? Have we got some examples? And I'd like you to add that into the Padlet. Shall we see how we're going with the Padlet? So why is industry engagement important? And what evidence can you gather of making your connections with this industry? Thank you for your contributions on the Padlet. I'm going to leave that be and move that off screen again. So, engaging with others is a big topic. So it talks about engaging with your peers, engaging with industry, and with fellow researchers. So from an HDR perspective, there's some questions that you need to ask yourself. What is industry engagement? When is it important? Why is it necessary? Who does it apply to? And how do you engage with industry? Now, there are two really big workshops that our industry engagement team, Susan and Simon, run on these topics. So I can't engage in all of that content, but it's really important for you to know that they exist, first of all. And I'd really strongly encourage you to go to one of their workshops on industry engagement. The other one is how to self-source an internship. So if you haven't considered an internship yet, if I can get you to think, if I don't do an internship, how do I demonstrate, how do I build evidence of my industry engagement? And if you can answer that without an internship, then you're sorted. But if you can't, it's really important to have a think about, how do I engage with industry and who is there to help me? So there's a whole team in GRED that are here to help you with that. The earlier in your program that you consider it and potentially put an expression of interest down, the easier it is for you to take up opportunities as they come about. And knowing who the students are who are interested in them helps Susan and Ski prepare for the internships that may be on board. They coach you through the whole process. It's a really supportive idea, and the programs that current participants have engaged with have changed the way they engage in their research at the moment. So it's a really important thing. What I would suggest with this one in terms of time frame is go to one of their initial workshops so that you understand what it is, so that you can plan ahead for that within your first year of study. So one thing that I'd like to mention here as well is that regardless of your future role, industry engagement is your critical point of difference as an academic. So even if you wanted to stay inside academia, industry engagement is what sets you apart from anyone else who's also got your same qualification who could teach into certain units. So commercialization and into entrepreneurship, horrible to spell, not so difficult to say. Again, this is food for thought for you. There are 1,000 ways that we could look at this topic, and the entrepreneurship, oh goodness, there are lots of experts at QUT that run workshops on these. I'd encourage you to have a look at the Foundry and in other places. Many of our learning experiences do a much more thorough job than we can do justice to in the next couple of minutes. But I just wanted to leave you room for thought. You are the product of your HDR journey. So what is the end result of your HDR research? Yes, you have a piece of research, but you are the product of the time that you've taken to get to those results. So if you're the product, what are your features and benefits? To be able to say, if you were selling, this is the product that I'm selling, what are my features and benefits? What is the current market for my product? Who are your buyers? Who are the people who are really interested in the skills and the aptitude and the way you get to results? Who are the people who are interested in learning more about that? Identify them early in terms of your industry connections. Find them on LinkedIn, do global searches, find out what's there during and post your study. And then how do you pitch to the best of those buyers? Because you want to take your best pick at the end of it. So the Entrepreneurship Centre, so the Foundry does some workshops on pitch practice. We have them in our Careers Week, which we hold once a year. But essentially, the other thing to do to pitch is the 3-minute thesis, pitching your thesis, and the visualize your thesis, how to condense this whole thing down into 3 minutes is no mean feat. Being able to practice that pitch and to be comfortable in, hi, this is who I am and what I can offer, is enormously valuable as you continue your study. So this next slide is all about collaborations. Well, that was fast. Okay, let's go back. Collaborations. Think about the collaborations that you have been involved in. This is one of the core skills that you're going to need during your research, but also past it. Think of the ones that you've been involved in so far. There might have been some global or international collaborations, transdisciplinary, misfit collaborations where you're the odd one out, but that's been a great experience because you've brought a different perspective. Maybe you've been ignored in collaborations. Successful or otherwise, these are the projects and the evidence of your abilities to be able to do this. So using the STAR model, which is a workshop I run about how to articulate your employability examples. STAR stands for situation, task, action, result. And using that model can help you explain an example quite quickly to talk about the results that you've achieved. So how could you elaborate on those stories to talk about your strengths? So a suggestion is to start collating this evidence now, because otherwise it's really difficult to remember the details and you might be forgetting something really amazing that you've done. So what are the collaborations that have changed the way you work collaboratively, where people have been really different to you, or where people have been all the same as you? How do you find a way to demonstrate your value? One thing that my experience tells me with HDRs is you undervalue your skills enormously. So one thing that this workshop would like to do is to remind you of just how many skills you currently have. So we're at the point where we want to figure out how to prioritize them. So we've gone through our 12 skills, a really brief snapshot. Now that we know what the skills are that are useful while you're studying and beyond, how do we put them into any kind of order? So we have a handout that we can use for this, but basically, and it's the skills matrix. We've got experience ratings. This is the way that the skill assessment tool explains it as we go through that process. So it asks you to evaluate whether this is not a relevant skill to me right now, or it's new to me, or I have some experience in it, or I have significant experience already. We all come from different backgrounds and we bring different strengths with us. For some of us, it's academic communication is a brand new thing. And for others, we've been doing it for years. So what this example does is it gives you a rating to use. 0 for not relevant, 1 is new to me, 2 is some experience, and 3 is significant experience. So if you were rating those 12 skills, where would you put your experience? Now, I need to give you the paper link as well so that you can play along at home. Yeah. All right, it's in the U Drive under careers and student workshops, if that's the fastest way. Otherwise, you may have a faster way. Sorry.
Okay, I'll have a look.
Sorry. It's the one thing I didn't upload. All right, am I still sharing my screen? You're still able to do that?
Yes.
Okay. So where we've got each of the skills, how experienced, not how highly skilled, but how experienced are you with academic communication from 0 to 3? And critical and creative thinking, how experienced do you think you are? The beauty with this assessment tool is it's ideal to do it at the beginning, around the middle, and then again towards the end of your candidature so that you can see your growth as you go. And you can also, so you can track your growth as you go, but you can also identify where you can build more experience, and you can collate some of these examples. So ideally, if you can rate your skills from 0 to 3 in terms of your current experience, that's half of your prioritization matrix. Then I'd like you to rate how important these skills are. Again, from a 0, not important at all. 1, small importance. 2, some importance. And 3, significant importance. So you'll end up with 2 scores for each of our 12 skills. Now, for those of you who've done the workshop, the skills tool, you'll already have a copy of this. So ideally, once you've said, yeah, this is my current skill base, how important is building on this skill base? Do I need to get it to a 3? Or don't I need to worry about that just yet or at all? Then relating those 2 things, are going to be what gives you your highest priority. Does this make sense? Does everybody have any questions as we go? I've sent Murray off on a wild goose chase potentially, and I'm sorry about that.
Just having trouble finding that folder, Karen. Could you repeat the title of it?
So it should be under careers events, then for students, and then it should be in a separate document called Skills Matrix. Sorry. We will definitely send it out to you, but ideally, maybe if you just wrote down 1 to 12, if we can get you to do this manually, don't have to write your skills, we'll leave it up on the screen. So 1 to 12 down the page. Then your next column is a 0 to 3. Maybe shade them, color code them. Would anyone like to share in the chat what they've expressed is a skill that they have the least experience in, but perhaps rate that as really highly important? Thank you, Murray. He's here to save me. He does it every time. Thank you, Murray.
Yeah, it's there in the chat now. So is there a skill that you think, I don't have a lot of experience in this yet, but I think it's really important for me? So the lower number in the experience versus the highest importance level will tell you where to prioritize. And the chat is silent. So hopefully, aha, thank you, beautiful. Methodologies, industry engagement. I struggle to find relevant information. A social justice. Everything is geared towards business and commerce. Yeah, I hear you. There is so many industry opportunities for our Siege candidates, but they're not as easy to find. They do exist though. So anyone in that situation where industry engagement seems important, but you just don't know where to start, come and see me and we'll start building your database of industries and connections. Methodologies and practice, yeah, early on. Experience rating 1, importance rating 3. Project management and collaboration, especially people management. Look at industry engagement as well. For those of you who do think that industry engagement might be where you're lacking experience, but you're prioritizing its importance, the industry engagement workshops that GRED facilitates are a really great place to get you started on how to build those connections. My LinkedIn workshop, which is uploaded onto Blackboard, is also a really helpful place. One thing that I suggest for students to have a look at is using the LinkedIn tool. You can do an alumni search. So the easiest way to get you started is to find somebody who's walked in your shoes a bit before you. So someone who completed a similar undergrad or a similar postgrad to what you've engaged with, where are they now, can be a really helpful place to start. There's another workshop that we run on informational interviewing. There's a resource on that on Blackboard, which I will include with this workshop's email when I send it out. It's a really helpful place to start on how to find information of what exists and where. And it's a free shot. It's not, I'm looking for a job. So it's really easy for the other person to engage. And engaging with our QUT alumni, people are always asking, we'd like to give back, we'd like to help out. And there's not always an option to do that, to be able to give back to somebody who was in their shoes, and they'll remember what it was like in your position when they weren't quite sure what to do next or where to go. So just to reinforce that helps you get started. So QUT Alumni is a really important resource to tap into, but also finding industries that could be useful and potentially sourcing your own internship through them. Susan and Simon will talk you through how to go about that. Okay, on that priority list, get my mouse to work again. The next step of it is to prioritize your plan. So essentially, cut and paste, so drag those skills where you're either highly experienced, low importance, high experience, high importance. And this is something, as I say, that you can use throughout your candidature. This will change. So every experience that you build, research experience, communication experience, presentation experience, all of that will add to the skills. I've confused my watch, my Siri. All of those will add to your experiences and the way that you can demonstrate and give examples to where you've built these skills. So these things are not a one-off. So the skills assessment tool is not a once-off. Sometimes you'll find that it's assessed you, well, you've self-assessed as not being super experienced. What the skills tool then does is recommend specific things that you can do to change, you know, to move the dial on how experienced you are. What I'd like to suggest too is what we're up to now. This is the fun part. So hopefully we'll be able to spend a fair bit of time on this one. Once you've identified the skills that you need, once you've prioritized which are the skills you need to work on the most urgently, then we create an action plan. So what do we do with this information? So what I'd like you to have a think about is, where can I learn this skill? And the skills tool, the skills assessment tool, will actually give you some examples, but they're not complete because we've only referenced things that GRED offers internally. There are also external things that you can do. But if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed with a lot of work to do on a lot of skills, stick with the internal ones because we'll guide you through each of those. Where can you learn this skill? The development opportunity is where can you practice this skill? And then the teaching opportunity is, where can I teach this skill to someone else? Now, for some of you, that will be professional teaching. That might be as a sessional or as a tutor, but it also means informal teaching. How can I teach my family this skill? How can I teach a friend this skill? Where are the opportunities that I can develop expertise? Because as we know, it takes a different level of understanding to translate that into teaching someone else. Okay, so here is an example of an action plan. So across the top is the skills, the unique skill, and down the side is a bit more information to unpack it. So your examples will be different. I've chosen 2 skills, 2 that I'm particularly passionate about and slightly more expert in, which is why I've selected them rather than disciplinary technology or anything. So to give you an idea, the study context is where can you do this inside your study program? So for industry engagement, why is this useful to your study? Well, it's to leverage industry relevance into your research. So it makes your research more broadly appealing. It also means that it's giving you another skill to, another string to your bow. The career context for industry engagement is for you to be able to build your professional reputation both inside and outside academia, because you need both. So what makes you potentially skilled and gifted as an academic is your industry relevance. What makes you skilled and gifted within an industry workplace is a little bit more of a straight line. It's easier. Now, if industry engagement was one of those things that you've said, I lack experience currently, but I recognize that it's super important. Here's the learning opportunity. 1, you can attend a self-sourcing and internship workshop led by Susan and Simon. Once you've done that, you can potentially enroll in an HDR internship or put together an expression of interest with an industry partner to participate in an internship. You can do that within your study. Susan and Simon will give you lots of information about how you can construct that, what happens to your study while you're on your placement, putting basically your milestones on pause while you're participating on an internship. The development opportunity from industry engagement. So this is where you can practice that skill. You can practice it through part-time work, through industry research collaborations, or a number of other things. Your teaching opportunity in terms of industry engagement could look like sessional teaching. You could work for an RTO, a registered training organisation, either private or government run, like a TAFE, or you could be involved in consulting. Or it could actually be, where else could you informally teach it? After you've participated in an internship, you can then do, Susan and Simon will ask you to do this, when you're completing your internship, to write a video resource, to participate in a brief video saying, this is what I learned, this is what the project was that I worked on my internship for, this is our outcomes, this is what I've achieved. That will then give you a piece of collateral that you can then upload to your LinkedIn profile. You can add to your academic CV to say, this is a demonstration of the skills and experience that I've learned. Another example is through career development. Why do I want you to be involved in that as early as possible in your study? Well, it's to identify potential endpoints, career endpoints, to help you develop a professional digital identity that you can start crafting straight away. That digital identity, that online identity is formed through that, who am I? What skills do I bring? Those 4 questions that we posed earlier in the workshop. What's the career context? Well, hopefully this one is self-evident, but it's because employability skills have to be lifelong. So things that we teach you and help you to engage with now are going to stay with you for the rest of your professional career, even though your initial role is probably going to be quite different to the role that you retire from. So these lifelong skills and habits that can be showcased and accessible to others to demonstrate how good you are at them. So your learning opportunities, well, I run 10 workshops a year. I run 5-week eGrad modules, which are, so there's another one starting in September on Explore Your Career Potential, where we get to work online together for 5 weeks to explore a lot of these topics in more detail. Or you could engage with LinkedIn Learning, because as a QUT student, all of the LinkedIn Learning modules are free for you to access, which is an amazing resource. What's the developmental opportunity? So how can I practice my skills in demonstrating my career development and planning as I go? Well, engagement on LinkedIn. We have a page that we add content to, the QUT Graduate Research Network. I hope to see you all on there. Have a look for it, QUT Graduate Research Network. You'll find the page. This is where you can practice your skills, the way you present yourself. I offer a LinkedIn review of anyone who is interested in engaging in that platform. It's just one of the platforms, but it is the one that industry engages with first. There are other more academic profiles, like your, I never know whether it's ORCID or ORCID, but that one for your more academic future, which is where you would reference all your publications. And where could you find a teaching opportunity in terms of formulating your career development? Well, through the HDR Society, oh, what's going on? There we go. Through the HDR Society for your particular discipline, there are HDR societies for, I think, every discipline. And you could be involved in peer coaching or peer-to-peer mentoring in terms of this. So you can go through this together and learn together as you go. All right. If you were wanting to put this together, I've built an HDR career planning model, which is essentially how to be career competitive by the time you've finished. So I've sectioned this out into early, middle, and late candidature. And I've given you an idea of where I suggest you start with some of these tasks. So building plans, drafting some of these, how do I build these skills, build these databases, I guess, of things that you need to address as you go through. Start early. Think about internships and industry experiences earlier than you think you'll need to, because they can take up to a year to get organised. So the earlier you've got an expression of interest put in, then the easier it is to fit it around your candidature. All the way through to, by the time you're looking for job referrals and to search roles, that's towards the end. So what does that actually look like? I've given you some tips. This is what it should look like. So how you address your current skills and any of your current gaps. That's partly what we've done today using the skills assessment tool. What are your skills how important is it for you to address those? And what are my steps going forward? So we've broken that down so that you don't have to think of things as you go. Again, just built into early, middle, late as you go through. So that can be used as your final cheat sheet. Have I addressed all of these? Revisiting that regularly as you go through your study to see where you've grown, to see where your focus has changed, really helps. And it helps you build a set of evidences to the new skills and perspectives that you've built. So I fit it all in, Murray. I wasn't sure that I would. That's been a whirlwind tour of the 12 skills. What I should also do is show you where those 12 skills are on our webpage. So let me get into QUT. And I'll show you the page, unless Murray gets there first, which he probably will. As I'm typing away, trying to get it going, I want to show you where it is and how to get to.
You're talking about the HiQ page, Karen?
Yes.
Yeah, I placed that link in.
Haha, too easy. Thank you. So that gives you access to what skills I need to develop, where are they found, and what workshops and experiences do we help you with, scaffold, as you go through. So it's a whirlwind tour of all those essential skills for while you're studying and post your study, why you need to engage with as many of them as you can throughout your candidature. Now, what questions have I not addressed? If you've got any questions, I would love for you to add that into the chat now. Are there things that we didn't cover? Are there questions that these resources have prompted that we can quickly answer now? While you're thinking of your questions, I would love to get a little bit of feedback on what you thought about this session. This is the first time that we've run it, so we're really keen to know, did it hit the mark? Did we give you the resources that you need to help you scaffold how to build your skills and what skills to build as you go through? Either take a picture of the QR code or enter the survey link. What we've really done is it's too big a question to solve how to build every single skill as we go through, because that would basically be distilling more than 70 workshops that we deliver across the year into one. But what we wanted to do was give you a snapshot and show you these are all the places that we do reinforce these skills and help you build them. So please engage with us so that you don't have to do it yourself. So these will be uploaded. So hopefully this will be familiar to you on our Gred Blackboard, but I will email you all of the documents that we've discussed, including the Padlets, and I'd love you to keep using the Padlet as an ongoing resource. And I would love, and I will make sure that I send through any of the are the links that I've referred to in this workshop. And because I'm a LinkedIn tragic, you probably haven't guessed. This gives you an idea. That's what my profile looks like. Feel free to engage with me on LinkedIn. It's often the most reliable and the fastest way that I respond to people, but I am happy to do a LinkedIn review with anyone. If you connect with me, and you'd need to ask me because I don't give feedback to anyone who hasn't asked for it. You'll find me there, Karen Carvu, and I encourage you to connect not just with me, although that's a start on your safe space. So if your profile isn't ready yet, connect with me and then I can help you build it from there. And got a bit excited. So finally, we just wanted to acknowledge the Indigenous importance of returning knowledge back to our families, to our communities, and to our friend. So anything, particularly careers related, because there's no proprietary information there, anything that I share from my workshops, I'm really happy for you to continue sharing so that your entire community, whatever that looks like for you, benefits from it. So thank you very much. I didn't think I'd do that in 90 minutes, but I've done it on the dot. If you've got any final questions, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope that it's inspired you to think of all the different skills that you already have, and then adding potentially some new ones to your repertoire. So Adri, you can connect with me. The easiest way is through GRED. So that's just gred@qut.edu.au. And then I can find you from there or through LinkedIn, whichever is easier. Thanks everybody for coming.